Hi, hello. So my name is Tiago Costa. I'm a cloud architect and advisor, a trainer, author, and international speaker, and I would like to welcome everyone to my session that is about supercharging your app service to the global scale. So like I said, doing a short presentation, my name is Tiago. I work as a cloud architect and advisor. I work as an independent contractor. I also train people and help people getting certified on Azure. I'm an MVP for Microsoft Azure. I'm also Microsoft certified trainer and an MCT regional lead. You have all my contacts in this presentation, so if you want to reach me, be my guest. You also have my Twitter handler. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I usually share a lot of topics around Azure and around also Azure certifications. What is the agenda for today? So we're going to talk a bit about what is Azure, just a small overview around what is the status of Azure today. And then we're going to start with our core presentation. So I'm going to start to talk a little bit about some business requests that I got some time ago, because this presentation is based on a real case. And then I'm going to tell you what services I use in order to solve this basically this business request that I had. And so that I'm going to focus on some of the services that I use. So I'm going to focus on the Azure App Service, Traffic Manager, Azure CDN. And then I will also make a reference in other resources that we had used in order to solve this case for our customer. But let's get started. Let's get started with what is the status of Azure today. So currently Azure, it is the second largest cloud provider, and we have around 61 plus Azure regions all across the world, from the United States, passing through Europe, Middle East, India, and Asia, Australia, all of this, and even Africa. There is also 2 regions in South Africa. So it is a massive infrastructure that we have, more than 130,000 miles of fiber and subsea cable, also 150 edge sites. So it's not only the regions that create all the Azure infrastructure. Usually in a lot of cities, usually big cities, they have an edge site from Microsoft, and they will serve for something like Azure DNS, which is one of the topics that we're going to cover here today, and that's also why it is so important. In terms of networking, we can have a private connection of 100 gigabits. So I can put a private connection. It's not internet, okay? Private connection to Azure of 100 gigabits in your company offices. So it is truly massive, okay? The stuff that I can put in here. And of course, I can also have 1.6 miles of fiber and subsea all across the world. So this is landline fiber. But well, let's get to talk a little bit more about what is Azure in terms of, have you already saw an Azure region? How does an Azure region looks like, right? So this is basically a photograph from Virginia in 2014. So Virginia corresponds to something called Azure East US in terms of Azure regions, and this is Virginia in 2014. And well, you can see on the right, we have like a small parking lot there with some cars, so that you can see how big the buildings are. And this is, I look at this picture and I see this and I see, wow, this is a lot of space for data center, right? And this is big. But if we see, and I think everyone is already expecting this, is that I show the next picture, right? And this is Virginia in 2017. So that first bit that I show is just that thingy over there, quite far, see? And we have 3 sets of 4 buildings, basically more in the picture that we didn't have those in the first picture. So this was what this site has grown in just 3 years. So it's like non-stop constructions. They are always expanding this, and I usually show this picture more for you guys to understand how big has been the growth on Azure. So Azure has been growing more than 100% from 2014 to 2017. Since then, it didn't had grown at 100%, but still in an impressive rates, around 60-70% year after year, which is impressive. I would love to have a business that could grow, right, at 60, 70, 80% every year. I think it will be a successful business for sure. And of course, imagine today, so I don't have any more recent pictures of this site, but imagine today how this site looks like. So it has even had grown even more, okay? So this leads me to something that I usually like to call why you should care about Azure. First of all, there is a huge demand. Some geographies, okay, because of many reasons, usually like legal requirements and things like that, they're still not there yet. But in some geos, it's huge, okay? And I work more on the United States and the European market. I also work for some Asian countries like Singapore. And look, it is massive. Massive, the number of projects and the size of the projects that we have. And we don't have enough people to do this. And there is a lack of professionals to do this kind of projects. So it is a great opportunity for people that want to basically move paths on their IT career to move to something like cloud computing. And of course, a second thing that I have here, and I found it very important on what I do, is I need to love what I do. I will not be the professional that I am today if I don't love what I'm doing, because working just from 9 to 5 because you have to do it, etc., at least for me, it's not something that I achieve to do. I have to be engaged in what I do. And Azure, for me, it's super fun to work with. Every project that I do, it's a different project. So with this, I'm saying that, well, I always have new stuff to do. I always have, new services to use. Or if I'm even doing the same task that I have done before, like imagine migrating servers from on-prem to Azure, I will do it in a different way. So this is amazing what I can do in here, because there's new services, there's new features that now we can use. So this constant change, this constant innovation is what I love in working with Azure, okay? And of course, the pay for what you use model. It's an awesome model, because hey, if I need 10 servers, I get 10 servers. If I don't need 10 servers, I just need 2 to run our workload, you just get 2 and you only pay 2. Okay, so even like yesterday, I was testing for a customer the scalability of an AKS cluster. That's something that we're putting together. And I talked with my team, and my team was convinced that, oh no, there's no scalability problems, blah, 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 etc. I was like, let me check, okay? Because I didn't like certain aspects of the bits of code that I saw. And I was like, I don't know if this will hyperscale like I want this to hyperscale. And they already had done some tests with like 5, 6, 10 basically nodes on the AKS cluster, but I just went there and I just scaled to 100 instances. And well, I found that we had some glitches there that now we need to fix. Okay, so we did basically a team conference call, and I said, hey, look, we have these problems in here. My question for you is, where in the world on-prem you get to have 100 virtual machines, right, available for you to play around with that just to try out something? It is very unlikely to get such thing. And look, I got that in like, yeah, I want to do this. Yeah, let's just do it. And I just did it. Okay. It was like a last minute thought that I had, and oh, well, let's just do it. And I went to Azure, clicked on a button, run some scripts, and later on, boom, I'm creating an AKS cluster with 100 instances of this. It's like amazing, right? And of course, yeah, I paid those 100 instances. Yeah, for sure. But I just paid for that time that I needed to use. After that, I tested, I finished the test, I have the results, I killed the AKS cluster. I'm not paying anymore. So all of this, it's advantages that I see. What about cloud models? So we have the on-prem where, well, basically we are responsible for dealing with everything. And then if I move to infrastructure as a service, okay, I don't need to take care of the hardware. Essentially the hardware, the physical security, the data center, so all of those things, yeah, it's gone. You just don't care about them anymore. So all of that is taken care by the cloud vendor. Great, love it. Okay, it doesn't add that much to the business. So let's just put Azure to take care of that. But of course, that's great. But for me, cloud, it's really cool is when I start to use platform as a service, because patching servers, we know it's important. We have to do it. Not even going to question that. But what does that add to the business? If you talk with a manager from your company and he asks you, okay, you patched that, what did I got from that for my business directly? Nothing. It doesn't add anything to the business, okay? We know, again, it's you need to do it, etc. But business-wise, you don't get anything out of that. And companies spend money in someone to do that, etc., etc., etc. So if I take that and I just drop that into the vendor, and the vendor will take care of that, it will take care of the OS, the middleware, the runtime. And this is where most of the services that we're talking today are going to fit, like the App Service, Azure DNS, okay, Traffic Manager. It is as a service. So I just go there, platform as a service is totally managed by Azure. I don't have to care about them. I can still even go a little step further and use tools like Office 365, okay, with Teams, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, all of that, that they are considered to be software as a service, because I don't even have to code an app to run something. It's just as a service, so it is pretty cool. Okay, so but let's focus on the challenge that we have ahead. What is the challenge that we have? So the challenge that we have is pretty simple. I have a business request that is to host a global customer experience web application and service layers for mobile applications. Okay, then they say, well, our customers are all across Europe, the United States, and Asia. And we need to have fast response times, so lower latency from all the regions on the globe. Currently, people that are from Europe, they have okay latency. Some countries, they suffer a little bit more, but it is okay. But people that live in the United States and people that live in the Asian region, they struggle a lot with latency. And this is very easily because the current solution that we had for this customer was hosted on-prem in their headquarters. So of course that their headquarters, in this case, it's in Amsterdam. So of course it will struggle from people that were coming from the United States and from Asia, because the latency will be huge. I also need to have a scalable solution. If I have more demand, I want to grow to more instances. If I have less demand, I want to save money. Okay, great. Makes all the sense, because that's one of the big, okay, catchphrases on going to the cloud, is that, yeah, we can do this. So yeah, it makes all the sense. Let's do that. It's a big advantage of using the cloud. And then, of course, another big advantage, which is lower latency, lower maintenance. So because lower maintenance, it's also important because you're going to save money out of this. So yeah, we want to do that too. So let's start to talk about services. So I started to see this and I started, well, we need to go to the app service. The app service will give me what? It will give me the bet on using a service that, okay, I can have that is scalable. I can host my web application there. I can host my REST services layer, and it's scalable, all of that. So I just saw this and I have the app service. It's scalable to host web applications, REST services, can work with multiple language platforms. In this case, they were using .NET Core, but even if they change to Java, or they get a module in Java or PHP, .NET, Go, Ruby, Python, it supports that. Underneath all of this, the instances can be Windows or they can be Linux. Great, that's also important. I have integration with development tools like Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, Eclipse, Azure DevOps, GitHub, etc. And of course, it supports custom domains. So all things that I'm like, yeah, I need those. And those are some of the basically selling points, okay, of using basically the app service. Enterprise grade applications. I have global data center footprint because I have 61 plus Azure regions available for me to deploy this. I get hybrid support if I need it. I have Azure AD integration so that I can do authentication using Azure AD. That's important. I have a fully managed platform as a built-in autoscaler, built-in load balancer, so I can have multi-instances. And I just need to literally say, I know I need 3 instances. Okay, done. And you're going to get load balancing integrated on this. High availability, auto patching. Okay, I get backup and restore. And I get what? A bunch of languages and frameworks that I can deploy here. I get staging slots with this, so you can test your app in a slot, and then if you, okay, this is good, you can swap that slot. Okay, and we also have an app gallery marketplace. So imagine I need a very quick WordPress website. Yeah, you just go to the Azure Marketplace. You will find WordPress as a template to deploy an app service plan. And like in 2 minutes, bam, you have a WordPress website up and running for you to use. So those are some of the highlights that I did with this, and I showed this to the customer before we move on. I said, hey, I'm going for app services because of this. Worldwide data center coverage. I can have for like background tasks and things like that. I can very easily integrate Azure Functions and web jobs with this. I get SSL TLS and custom domains. I get auto scaling. I get deployment slots. We're also going to do a DevOps process for this with Azure DevOps. That's the tool that we chose. So this also integrates quite well with that. So again, pretty cool. And of course, I have tight integration with other Azure services like Azure CDN, Traffic Manager, Front Door. And that's also important because, yeah, I want to do stuff with that. And then if we look at the plans, I'm not going to bother you that much with like all the differences with the plans. There is on Microsoft Docs an article that explains this way better than I could be done in here because they have all the information there. But I have 3 big categories: free and shared, which is shared compute. So you're using a virtual machine somewhere that other customers are using the same VM. And we have availability of compute minutes a day. If you spend more than that, basically you're just going to get an error. So if you have more requests than 60 or 240 compute minutes a day, you're just going to get an HTTP error. Do you really want that? I don't. So dedicated compute, it's a minimal that I say that we need to have. I have basic, standard, premium, premium v2, and premium v3. That's the new one. And we get 3, 10, or 30 instances. Okay, so that's what the premium have. So I can get 30 instances on an app service. And in premium v3, they are quite big. The virtual machines, the bigger virtual machines that you can have on this. So it's pretty cool. I have also traffic manager support, deployment slot support, and I also get backups only on the standard and the premium ones. Okay, so the basic doesn't have that. So if you want to have those features, and if you want to have like auto scaling, for example, you need to go at least to a standard tier. Okay, and then I also have the isolated tier, which is creating an app service environment that you can also use that, and we can go up to 100 instances, which is like, my God, so many instances. Okay, I never used an app service plan with 100 instances, I have to confess. But the key differentiator of the A's is VNet isolation. All the other ones, you get a public endpoint. It will be the name of the app.azurewebsites.net. That's what you get. If you go to the A's, you get a private IP address from a virtual network. And then if you do like a site-to-site connection to your headquarters or something like that, you can totally have an app service that is totally private. This is why most people choose the A's. Usually it's not because of the number of instances that you can get. Usually that's not the case. What about availability of this? Yeah, I can have the Azure App Service multi-tenant on Azure. Okay, the public Azure. I can have the app service environment, like I said, but I can also run this using Azure Stack. And Azure Stack is an offering that Microsoft has to bring cloud computing to the edge, to on-prem. So that is, it creates cloud computing. It's still cloud, but it's a private cloud. Okay, and I can bring that close to your company, inside your company, to be more precise. And the app service is one of the services that you have available in Azure Stack. Azure Stack doesn't have all of them, and like some that we're going to talk about here today, like Azure CDN, for example, it's one of the ones that is not available, which kind of makes sense. Okay, it's a content delivery network, so having this on Azure Stack probably doesn't make that much sense. I can do stuff like app settings, so I can go to the service and define some application settings, some connection strings. This will override what you have in the app config or a web config file. Okay, and we can configure this very easily through the portal or through PowerShell, ARM templates, Bash, you name it. What about auto scaling? So, okay, that's a easy bit. So I can do auto scaling with this. I can have scheduled rules, or I can have basically based on performance metrics. So schedule is it's easy. You just come here and you just say, every Monday at 7 p.m. in the morning, I want to scale to 4 instances, because you're going to have a predictable growth. So it's a predictable load. You need 4. Don't wait for the load to start. In advance, basically create the resources that you need. But I can also have unpredictable loads, and this is why I have performance metrics. So I can set up performance metrics, and that's pretty important, because I just say something like, if this grows more than, I don't know, 80% the CPU, I want a new instance. If it gets lower than 35%, we can remove one instance. So this is the kind of stuff that we can do with this. And of course, you can set up minimal and max number of instances so that you're always within that range, okay? Because you don't want to have 30 instances, for example, because you can't afford to pay 30 instances, but you want to pay like, I don't know, like 5, 10, something like that. I give you the example on the counter on the CPU, but you can also have other counters like memory queue and queues and even others, okay? So with all of this, let's just basically start and do a demo. This demo, I'm just going to create a web application, and we're going to see how cool and how easy it is to create this web application and see the web application available. Okay, so let's just do that. Okay, so it's time to create an Azure App Service. So I can just say web applications here. So I go to the app service, I click add so that we can add here a new app service. I select the AzConf resource group, and I just need, okay, to basically just create here an instance name, and I'm just going to call AzConfWE from Western Europe. I'm just going to choose its .NET Core 3.1, and I'm going to say that this is going to be in the West Europe region. And then of course I need to do here the creation of the app service plan. So this is basically what we pay. It's our billing boundary, but also our feature boundary. And because later on I want to use services like the Traffic Manager, I need to use at least a standard tier. And that's the one that I have, the one that I want, but I just want to create this a different name here. So let's just say AzConf ASP from App Service Plan Western Europe. In the monitoring, well, we should enable application insights. It's a great tool, but right now I'm not going to do that. It's not on the scope of today's session. So I'm not going to create application insights together with my web application. And we're just going to wait a little bit for this to be created. But when this is being created, I can start already to create the second web app. And what I'm going to do in the demo is, because our customer has the need to have a global presence, I don't want to have only in Europe, but I also want to have the same thing here, but now I'm going to choose the United States. I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. So add, I'm even going to drop it in the same resource group. This is just a demo, so it is fine. And I'm just going to call this East, okay, US. And of course, it's still a .NET 3.1. And of course, now this here, I need to select East US. And I'm also going to change slightly here, okay, the name of my service plan. Under monitoring, let's just choose no. And there you go. Okay, and so now I'm going to create that new app service plan. So with this, probably the first one, I think I saw it, is already created. So if I go to app service plans, I see here AzConf from Western Europe. And what I'm going to do in this bit in here is I'm just going for a tool that we have under development tools, which is this app service editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slightly tweak here the landing page of the Azure App Service just to show something different. So I'm just going to say, hey, service app developers, and then I'm just going to add here okay, Europe, so that we know that, oh yeah, that represents the European version of this. Okay, so there you go. It's done. So if we go to the overview blade in here and we click browse, you see, oh yeah, Europe. So yeah, I mean really in the European version of this. Can close that one. And if I close this one now, if I refresh, I should have here now the one from the United States. And I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. So I go to under development tools, you have the app service editor. I click go. I say that's the account that I want to use. And if we wait here a second, this will open and I will just do exactly the same things. But of course now I will just say USA instead of Europe. So there you go, it's loading. Okay, and app service developers, and let's just put there USA. It's saved, so we're good. And of course, if we scroll up, we basically get here under the browse, you'll see USA. Okay, so if you see this, so in here you have AzConf is US, Azure websites, okay, and this has US. If I show you the other one, so this one here, you have there the Western Europe, and here I put it exactly that. So I just have there Europe. Okay, yeah, so great, happy days. Now we just have basically created 2 web applications, okay? But of course they are, if I want to go to one, I have one URL. If I need to go to the other one, I have another URL. It's still not optimal, but it's a start. And now we're going to see what will be the next steps. Okay, so then going back here to our slides. So this is the status that we have now. I have an app service plan in West Europe. I have another one in East US with our web applications there. But again, like I was saying, we have 2 different URLs, and yeah, this is not definitely a good solution, but it's a start. So the next service that we thinking about implementing here is called Azure Traffic Manager. And what is Azure Traffic Manager? So Azure Traffic Manager allows me to control the distribution of the user traffic based on a series of routing methods. I have several routing methods. I'm going to show you some of them. And then I can route based on those events to endpoints. What can be an endpoint? So examples of endpoints can be an Azure virtual machine. It can be an app service. So exactly what we want. It can be a slot of an app service, or it can even be an external endpoint. An example of an external endpoint could be, for example, if you wanted to do this for like a non-prem endpoint, so a virtual machine that has a solution that runs on-prem. What will be the benefits of this? So what are the benefits, the key benefits that I identified about the Traffic Manager? Improves the availability of critical applications, because I will have 2, 3 places where my application will be running. So of course, it will increase the availability in case that one of the regions fails. I always have one of the other regions. Also improves responsiveness of high performance applications, which is the case of this one. So this one has a lot of load, and load that comes from different places in the world. So yeah, it will distribute the load across different regions. So yeah, we have everything to gain with that. And of course, if we want to perform maintenance in one of the regions, we can only have the other regions supporting our workload. So again, another advantage. And I can combine on-prem with cloud-based applications. So like I said, one of the endpoints can be an on-prem solution. So you can have that on-prem solution together with some cloud-based applications and put this all to work together. And of course, distributed traffic for large and complex deployments, which is also includes this specific case. So what about configuring Azure Traffic Manager? So we need to create what we call a Traffic Manager profile. Then we choose the load balancing method, so the routing method that I was talking about. And I have there, for example, 3 examples: geographic, priority, or performance. There are even more, but those are probably like the 3 most used ones. Geography is a method that I can explicitly say traffic that comes from country A or B or C goes to that endpoint. And that endpoint will be, for example, one of our web apps. So I can say like, oh, traffic that comes from the United States, it makes all the sense to go to East US, right? So let's do that. But if I wanted, I could do something very silly too, and it will be a little bit blind this. If it's the rule that you say, they will follow it. If you want to go for what is the best region to get from basically the source, that one is easy. We just choose performance. So performance, Microsoft stores latency tables from the origin to the destination. And the destination, you have East US, West Europe. Oh, where I'm coming from, this is my origin. It's, I don't know, like for example, the UK. Of course, yeah, if you want to get to one of those regions, well, West Europe is in Amsterdam, so Netherlands is pretty near the UK. That one will be with a lower latency for sure if we are comparing with East US. So performance will just take people that are from the UK just directly to that. But you don't have control on this. It's based on latency tables, and that's the beauty of this. So you don't even need to think about it. You don't need to consider this. It is pretty easy to set up this one. Priority, well, priority, I can just say, hey, all the traffic goes there, and if it that basically always on that endpoint, and if that endpoint is not available, hey, I have a secondary point, and I have a point number 3, number 4, whatever you have. And of course, you get a domain on the Traffic Manager endpoint that is like something.trafficmanager.net. Of course, you don't want to use this, so this is why we usually put a CNAME record on our DNS zone. So www.mydomain.com will point to something.trafficmanager.net. So that's the idea. But how does the Traffic Manager works? So you see here, so in step number 1, that's my user. He goes to the DNS server and he just asks, I want to see www.azcontoso.com. Oh, okay, great. So you just need to go to azcontosoweb.trafficmanager.net. So that's the CNAME record that I have here. Oh, okay. So then you go straight to the Traffic Manager. Then the Traffic Manager detects from where you are based on the routing algorithm that we talk about. It will select one of those 3 endpoints, sends you the response to you saying that, oh, it's that endpoint that you should communicate with. And then you go there directly. So there is, to be honest here, there is nothing passing through the Traffic Manager. So the Traffic Manager is like a load balancer. It doesn't work like that, where, you know, all the requests and responses passes through the load balancer. No, this one doesn't do that. It just does DNS redirection. So it just tells you, hey, just go there. And then now you communicate directly with that web application as long as the TTL, it is valid. So there's a time to leave here that as long as that's valid, yeah, it just goes straight there. If it's not valid for that request, yeah, you need to go to the Traffic Manager again and do the process again. Talking about routing methods. So this is the one that you see here is basically the priority one. So I have priority 1, priority 3, and priority 2. All the traffic gets the Traffic Manager, and Traffic Manager always points to priority 1 endpoint. If that basically endpoint, it's not working anymore, Well, then, of course, you need to go to priority 2. And if priority 2 it's not working, then you're going to priority 3. So this is basically how it works, the priority method. What about if we're talking about geography or performance? Well, depending on the routes that you have there, if it is performance, it depends on the origin and the latency tables. If you are from the US, yeah, most probably you're going to end up in West US. If for some reason I'm in Brazil, then yeah, probably you go to South Brazil. And if I'm somewhere in Europe, yeah, probably I will just go to show up here in North Europe. So that will be what it is expected. Okay. So now it's time to create a demo on the Traffic Manager, and our idea now is create a Traffic Manager profile and add those two endpoints that I have, those two web apps as endpoints for our Traffic Manager. So let's just do that. All right, so let's start with the Traffic Manager. So I'm just going to create here a resource. I go for a Traffic Manager profile. Let's click create, and let's just say AzConf. Let's see if this one is available. It is available. And I'm just going to choose the routing method performance. And if you see here, so it's here that you have like priority, geographic, and even others. I'm just going to say that I want to drop this in that resource group, and then I will click create. Now we just need to wait here for a couple of seconds, and you see that traffic managers are pretty fast to create. Now I need to add my endpoint. So I just need to go here under settings to endpoints, click add, and I'll just call this Europe. That's going to be my European endpoint. And you see here App Service, and I'm just going to choose here, okay, my app services, and I'm going for the one in West Europe, and there you go. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but now I'm going to do the exact same thing for the one in the USA. So just say USA, App Service, and I'm now going to select this one in the USA. And there you go. So it is done. It is created. And what I have to do now is wait for this monitoring status here to change to online. That takes a couple of minutes. So in the meantime, when this is being done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to overview. Just going to copy this. I'm going here for a domain that I have here, which is this AzConfDev2020.com. And I'm going to add here record set that I'm just going to update this one here. Okay. So instead of, I'm just going to do the www.azconfdev2020, but instead of doing this, I'm just going for our traffic manager. Okay. So there you go. So this is basically a domain that I use for demos. So there we go. So this is done. And now that I have done this, let me go to my AzConf Western Europe, go to custom domains, and say that, hey, you're going to be able to respond for www.azconfdev2020.com. And I'm just going to validate this. So green, I'll just add the custom domain. So it will validate. It will show here in the list in no time. If not, we can force here a refresh. There you go. And I will add a binding to this. So I'm going to import an app certificate. I already have here a TLS certificate. And it's validating my certificate. So just press OK. And now I just need to say that's the thumbprint, and it's going to be an SNI SSL. So, and if we wait a second, there you go, configured. So now this will respond by HTTPS to that custom domain. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing for my domain, but before my app service in the US. And I'm just showing you this with just 2 web applications, but it will be the same if you have 3, 4, 5, whatever. Okay. So this has done it. Let me refresh. There you go. Add the binding, import the certificate, validate it. It is validated. And now just do the binding of the thumbprint with the certificate. Okay. There you go. And SNI, add binding. There you go. Okay, now it is done. And so there you go. So now let's go back to our traffic manager, and ta-da, there you go. See, it is online. So it is online already. So we are good. We are good to go. Okay, so now if we just try this. So if we just do www.azcontoso.com, and I'm in Europe, so if I do this, there you go, I'm redirected to the European app service, which kind of makes sense, right? But if I'm in the US, and now to simulate a connection to the US, I have this virtual machine. So this is an Azure virtual machine that I already pre-created, and I created this in one of the US regions. And if I do this from there, there you go. Okay, so USA, so I'm seeing this in the United States. And if you want to see this machine, okay, I can show you here. So this is the machine that I have here, and as you can see, so the location of this machine is in central US. Okay, I just choose randomly, to be honest, somewhere in the US, a region over there. But you saw same URL, but I went to different app services. So this is already pretty cool, and I just did with 2. But imagine if we had more than 2. Okay. So the current status now, it's this. I have Traffic Manager over there, and it's basically serving those 2 app service plans as their endpoints. Okay, so there are the endpoints of our Traffic Manager. So it is great what we have now, but now I also want to introduce another service that is called Azure CDN, and CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. So why did I choose to use this? To serve static content from services like Azure Storage, Cloud Services, App Services. I can have a specific host name for this, and I can then scale this to multiple POP locations around the world. But POP location stands for point of presence. And this will use those edge locations that we started to talk about in the beginning of our presentation. So all those POP locations can be used as together with the Azure CDN. So I'm going to put static data very, very closely to my users, wherever they are, because those POP locations are around the world, and like every major city in the world, they will have a POP location very near them. So CDN endpoints, they are globally distributed, and we have 3 networks. We have the Microsoft network, but we also support in Azure DNS, Verizon networks, and Akamai. And I can then choose a storage account. Let's just give the example of a storage account. I drop some files there, and then those files will be closer to the users because basically they will be in those POP locations. So I have here an example. So you see there, I dropped some content on my storage account. Then I have that client from South Korea, and there's like some representation of some POPs. And of course, that POP location over there, it's the one that will have the file. So it will cache the file by default for 10 days. And then, yes, then I can just use that file. And the first time, it might take a little bit of more time, but after that, all my other requests that go to that Seoul POP location, they will be served in a very, very low latency, much lower than coming to that storage account that it's in Europe. From Seoul going to Europe will take a lot of time in terms of latency for sure. So that's the big advantage that I have here. So let's do a demo with this and let's just see how cool this is and how can we put this to work. It is very, very easy, but let's just see this in action. Okay, so let's create a CDN here. So I'll just say CDN. Let's click create. What is the name? AzConfDev2020. I will drop this in the same resource group and I will choose standard Microsoft as the pricing tier. And I say, yeah, let's just create here the CDN endpoint. So I have the profile and then I have the single profile can have several endpoints. So I just drop here AzConf. So let's see, this is available. It is. Now I need to choose where is your static data. So I already pre-provisioned here a storage account called AzConf CDN and I already have some files there. So I'm just going to use this one and I'll just click create. So now this takes some time to create, a minute and a half, usually 1 minute, something like that. But it also takes extra time to do the propagation of this across all the POP locations in the world. So basically, we have to be patient on this when you're doing a demo, etc. I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to kind of fast forward this bit so that you guys can see this in action. But basically, you have to wait for Microsoft network around 10-15 minutes. If you're talking about Akamai or Verizon, times change. One of them, it can even take like up to an hour, okay, in one of them. So it is a matter, this is just the first time, by the way, that you create this. After that, it's immediately, you just drop a file in that storage account, bam, it will just show through the basically through the Azure CDN right away. But the first time when you create this, yeah, it takes a while because it just needs to tell every single POP location in the world that, hey, look, I'm also responding for this URL and things like that. So that propagation time, it's up to 15 minutes here in the Microsoft network. So let's just wait a little bit about this, okay? Okay, so if you want to test now the CDN, so I can, this is my storage account, so I can just go to containers, CDN, and you see that I have like some logos here. So if I want to open this MCT logo, I just need to drop here is the name, okay, and you can see there the name of my CDN endpoint .azureedge.net, and then of course CDN, which is the name of the container, and MCT logo, which is the name of our blob. And if we do this, there you go, ta-da. Okay, we see the logo. This is being served by the DNS. So my local edge location has this cached now. So now if I just ask it again, it will be boom. So it's like super low latency to get this file in here. So this is the big advantage that I have when using the Azure CDN. Okay, so it will really help getting lots of files and loads of file in a very low latency. Okay, so now that we saw our Azure CDN working, so this is the current status that we have, and we introduced that CDN. I have that storage account with static content that it's just in West Europe, but because of the CDN, it just propagates and it gets very, very low latency all across the world. So it is truly amazing what we could do with just these three basic services: App Services, Azure CDN, and Traffic Manager. We just created a global web application like in no time. Doing this without the cloud, it was possible. Yes, of course it is possible, but we will take a lot of time. And now in less than 1 hour, I have all of this done. And I still have time to deliver the session and to explain all the features that we have in each one of the services. But of course, there are other services that we might find useful in this kind of scenarios. And Azure Storage, we saw that. I can also use Azure Functions to store and then to run background tasks, processing pictures, processing documents, and things like that. In terms of databases, I can use Cosmos DB, which is a NoSQL approach, or SQL databases. I can have Redis Cache that will serve as a caching mechanism. And I can have Azure Search that, well, with Azure Search, I can create a true search experience. It's a free text search experience, and I'm not doing, oh, let's do a like in the database and things like that. Come on, that's a no-go for a true search experience. And also Front Door, then together with DDoS protection, can do SSL offloading, can do the traffic manager stuff, and a bunch of other features that we have that they come with Azure Front Door. So it's a very cool service, and you should definitely have a look at that one. So in a nutshell, basically you can have something like this, like you see in here. So in here, as you see, I have a polyglot solution here on databases. That database can also be reached through Azure Search because I'm indexing bits of the database to the search. I can serve this as Azure Redis Cache that I have lower latency to get the data, and the data will also be in a format that might be near what my users want. I have my web app. I have a queue mechanism to send something for the function to process. So the function can do all the background processing of this. I have here a storage account for static content that is being served by the CDN. I have Traffic Manager, and I have a replication of everything that I have inside on top. So this West Europe, I have here in East US, and I only have 2 regions represented in here, but of course imagine that we had more. It will be the same thing. We just need to create one more region, and things like that. What about tools and resources? So definitely Visual Studio Code, they are like awesome tools to work with this. Git, a must have, and then Azure DevOps. So now we need it for sure. There's still stuff here that I missed, of course. We only have 1 hour to do our session, but I could have done like DevOps pipeline that will deploy the 2 web applications. Okay, it will configure the Azure CDN stuff and things like that. So basically there's still a lot to do. So I would like to thank our sponsors, Microsoft and GitHub, and also for all the communities that are behind the scenes here helping this amazing event. And it was truly a pleasure to be here. Unfortunately, only in virtual experience, but I will hope that next year we'll have an in-person event, and I will be truly honored to be in India in front of you all and deliver another session for everyone. So thank you very much. And this is how you can supercharge your applications to the global scale. So my name is Tiago Costa, and you have all my contact information in this website. I have my Twitter, and you also have my email address. So if you want to reach out with me with questions, etc., be my guest. It is an honor and a pleasure to help you all. Thank you very much.